Welcome, history enthusiasts, to this series on women's history in America, where we will explore the experiences of women from colonial America to the present day. In today's video, we'll focus on the lives of women during the colonial period, from their roles in society to the challenges they faced. In colonial America, women lived vastly different lives compared to what we know today. They had very few rights. They couldn't vote, hold political office, or in some cases, even work outside of the home without facing societal backlash. The jobs available to women were often seen as immoral or unsuitable for certain classes, and those who pursued them were looked down upon. Women were largely dependent on the men in their lives, whether it was a father, brother, or husband, to provide for and protect them. But while women were expected to be obedient and subservient, there was still an expectation of respect toward them. However, that respect didn't mean protection from harm. It was not uncommon for men to abuse their wives, daughters, or any other woman under their care. The everyday lives of colonial women were not as well documented as the men of the time, but we do know a few things. They were responsible for what we now call domestic work, such as housekeeping, cooking, and child rearing. While this work was crucial for keeping a home and family running smoothly, it was often undervalued both then and now. Women's roles were defined primarily by their husband's status. Wealthier women might have lived more comfortable lives, but they were also held to a stricter social standard. On the other hand, lower class women not only maintained the household, but they also had to help with farming, tending to the animals, or assisting in their husbands' businesses. These women were often skilled enough to be successful businesswomen in their own right, and a few were lucky enough to be able to own their own businesses or property. However, the ability for women to own property in her own right varied by city, county, or colony. For example, in Massachusetts, widows held the claim of land or realty owned during the marriage. In Maryland, a widow was allowed a full dower share, but in Virginia, the dower share was restricted to what her children received. States like Pennsylvania and New York also had limited protections for deserted wives whose husbands were alive but left them. Connecticut would only give widows a dowry of land that their husbands owned at the time of his death, and until 1723, women who married in Connecticut lost all rights to their property upon marriage. It became her husband's to do whatever they wanted with it. He could sell or mortgage it, and could pass it on to whoever he wanted to. This was common in most colonies, though some were more strict about how property was handled than others. In some areas, women were able to oppose land sales or mortgages that their husbands wanted, and in some cases, they could sue for their thirds in the land that were mortgaged or sold without their consent. During the 17th century, many of these laws changed, and some colonies went back to English rules, while others broke with them and created their own. It was a time of uncertainty for many women, not only when it came to owning property, but for many other things as well. How did one know an English goodwife when one saw one? Her body and head would be modestly covered. The colonial period was also marked by fear, especially when it came to women who didn't fit the social or moral norms of the time. These women were often accused of witchcraft. A terrifying example of this fear is the Salem Witch Trials, which took place from February 1692 to May of 1693. During this period, hundreds were accused, many imprisoned, and tragically, 14 women and 5 men were executed by hanging or other cruel methods. Among the most infamous cases of the Salem Witch Trials was that of Sarah Good. It was described as cruel and shameful to the highest degree. This was said because much of the evidence against her was known to be false. During the trial, one of the afflicted girls claimed she was being stabbed with a knife by the apparition of Good. However, once examined, they found a broken knife, and after this was known, a man came forward stating he broke the knife and discarded it in front of the girl. He even brought the other piece of the broken knife to show the court. Unfortunately, this had no effect on the outcome of the trial, as they had already decided she was guilty before the trial had even started. When Minister Nicholas Noyes tried to get Good to confess, she yelled from the scaffolding, "You're a liar! I'm no more a witch than you are a wizard. If you take my life away, God will give you blood to drink." Some say Sarah did get her revenge, as Noyes died of an internal hemorrhage in 1718, just before his 70th birthday. This, of course, did not help her case and actually convinced many she was guilty and deserved her fate. Though Salem is the most infamous, witch trials occurred throughout the colonies. For instance, Virginia had several cases, many stemming from nothing more than gossip. One notable case was that of Grace Sherwood, who was accused by neighbors of bewitching their pigs and crops in 1698. When traditional investigations failed, the men conducting the trial resorted to an ancient and discredited method, the water test. Sherwood was tied up and thrown into a body of water. If she floated, she was deemed guilty. If she sank, she was innocent. Grace Sherwood floated, was convicted, and spent years in prison. In 1714, she was eventually released, and she lived peacefully in her home until her death at around the age of 80. On July 10th, 2006, the governor of Virginia gave an informal pardon to Grace, restoring her good name. He also stated, "We can also celebrate the fact that a woman's equality is constitutionally protected today, and women have the freedom to pursue their hopes and dreams." Although colonial women had fewer rights than we do today, they were individuals with dreams, ambitions, and a desire to care for their families and communities. Some women even defied the expectations placed on them, achieving remarkable things despite the limitations they faced. I'll highlight some of these exceptional women and their stories in future videos. For now, I'll leave you with this thought. How much has truly changed, and how much remains the same since those early days of American history? Thank you for watching, and I look forward to continuing this journey through women's history with you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content on women's history and other important topics. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will explore the next chapter in women's rights and roles in America during the American Revolution.